We used to think of dangerous viruses as being a world away, something that couldn't affect us. But now two of them have landed right on our doorstep, Ebola and enterovirus. Information is changing by the minute, and I think all of us are asking, how concerned should we really be?
It's like the plot of a terrifying movie. The fear of a deadly virus taking over the globe.
We have the world's first epidemic of Ebola, and it's spiraling out of control.
Ebola, which destroys the immune and vascular systems, first reemerged in March, spreading like wildfire, infecting 8,000 people in West Africa and killing 50% of them.
I am very scared of Ebola, and I'm certainly very concerned about it spreading in the United States.
In August, 2 Americans became infected while doing missionary work in Africa.
I felt like I was about to die.
Both Dr. Kent Brantley and nurse Nancy Wrightbull recovered. But then just this month, a nurse in Spain was diagnosed, and we had our first death in the U.S.
The first case of Ebola to be diagnosed and confirmed here in the U.S. has died.
And this week, news that a Texas health worker who was caring for that patient now has the ominous virus.
The apartment of a Dallas healthcare worker now on full lockdown after she tested positive for the Ebola virus over the weekend.
And the latest, a man who had been working with the United Nations in Africa has died in Germany. We're also dealing with another scare, this one targeting children.
It's not Ebola. It's called enterovirus D68. Its effects are mysterious, but it has not proven deadly until now.
In just 2 months, 6 U.S. children with enterovirus have died.
I'm fearful of it spreading to my children who are 5 and 2.
4-year-olds should not die in this country.
Now not just 1, but 2 dangerous viruses making new headlines daily.
And joining us is ABC's Chief Health and Medical Editor and the former Acting Director of the CDC, Dr. Richard Besser. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Besser. I said to you in the break that I really consider you a voice of reason, and there's a lot of hysteria, obviously anxiety that's happening all over the world, but certainly in this country now that we've had a death and a nurse that's contracted it as well. You just came back from Liberia, which is the hardest hit with this illness at this point. What is the condition like there at this point?
You know, I was a disease investigator at the CDC for more than a decade and reporting on diseases now for ABC. I've never seen an outbreak as devastating as this one. It's absolutely overwhelming. And what is so hard to understand is that only 20% of those people with Ebola can find a bed to go into to get treated. So most of the people are at home. They're continuing to infect people, and you just see tragedy after tragedy. It was one of the hardest things I've ever seen or reported on.
But in terms of containment, because everybody seems to say if we can't contain it in West Africa, we're in big trouble. Are you seeing it being contained at this point, or no?
No. You know, I've been to Liberia now twice. I was there in August to report on the outbreak, and then I went back a month later to look and see what's happened with the response. And there were a lot more aid workers there this second time, but it's been more than a month since the president said we would be building treatment units, and not one of them is up and running. And the World Health Organization just said if we don't speed this up, they could be seeing, within 2 months, they could be seeing 10,000 new cases every week. And that's just unbelievable. It's hard to comprehend what that will do to West Africa and what it means in terms of safety around the world.
See, now you really are scaring me. I didn't realize it was as bad as you are now projecting it could be. You were there twice, you said. Were you scared? Are you scared for your own health?
Well, I think if you go to this region and you're not scared, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
And there's a chance that you'll make a mistake. I'm a pediatrician, but I'm also an infectious disease specialist. So I knew what to do to protect myself and my producer, cameraman. There were the 2 of us who came over from ABC News. And, you know, people look at the footage and they say, you were so close to people who had Ebola. Well, you don't get Ebola by being close. You get Ebola by touching, by having contact with body fluids. When I suited up and went into an Ebola treatment unit, I was suited up by professionals who know how to do this. I went into a unit where they've treated more than 100 Ebola patients and not one healthcare worker has gotten sick.
But I've also read that if you were within a few feet of somebody with Ebola and they sneeze, you could get it from the sneeze if it's within a few feet.
Well, the good news is that Ebola doesn't cause sneezing. And so that's not a symptom. You can see coughing. And if you're within a few feet of someone who's coughing, you could get a droplet and that could cause disease. But you don't cough with Ebola until you're near the very end, when your lungs fill up with fluid. And so it's not like with a cold or the flu where you're walking down the street and someone sneezes and it spreads. The people who are coughing with Ebola are very ill. They're near death.
Are you monitoring yourself now for Ebola?
I am. This is now.
Okay. Okie dokie.
Yeah, I mean, that's not an uncommon reaction. This is now day 12 for me.
So what do you do every day?
So I take my temperature twice a day.
Right.
The thing about Ebola, the CDC recommends that anyone who's been to this region monitors their temperature for 21 days. And the reason for that is that if I were to get a fever, I could go to the hospital and be isolated. And with that early fever, I can't spread the disease to you. It's not until you're losing body fluids that you spread the disease. So it's a good warning sign. And even though the CDC puts me into the lowest risk group, it's smart to monitor my temperature because, what if something happens? I got to tell you though, at work, people may be afraid of me. I'm afraid of them because if I get a cold or something and get a fever from them,
everybody's going to think you have Ebola.
And I'm in isolation.
Right.
Yeah.
Why aren't you in voluntary isolation, like the folks from NBC who came back?
Yeah, we're in different risk groups. The unfortunate thing with the NBC team is that one of their crew members had Ebola.
Right.
And so they were in close contact with someone with Ebola. If I had been in close contact with someone with Ebola, if someone in my crew had Ebola, or there'd been a break in anything that I did on that ward, then it would be a situation where it would be quarantined. But we checked in with CDC and they felt just like their workers who go to Africa, they go to work as soon as they get back.
Right. You mentioned that if you came down with a fever, you would go to a hospital, but we're hearing from nurses around the country that the hospitals are really not equipped, most of them, and they don't have the training to handle patients with Ebola.
Yeah, I think that
and they're on the front line.
They are on the front line, and it really worries me. I think that every hospital in America should be able to receive somebody and isolate them initially. And so if someone comes in with a fever, every hospital should ask, have you traveled, where have you been? And if they have a fever and they've been to one of these countries, they need to be in isolation. But that's very different from taking care of a patient with Ebola. And I think that needs to take place only in the specialized units that have been training for this.
So they're talking about that now. Instead of allowing these patients to go anywhere in the country, they will be sent to a special unit.
They haven't decided to do that, but I think that would be the safe way to go. It's like putting someone in a spacesuit and saying you're now an astronaut.
Right.
It takes training, it takes practice. It's not the clothing that makes you safe, it's doing it properly.
You talk about West Africa being the epicenter for this, and if you can't contain it there, we don't know what's going to happen. I don't understand why there isn't a travel ban. Why can't you just say if you're in one of those areas, you can't come here until the disease is contained? Yeah. It's not insulting to the person. If we're dealing with an epidemic, it's protecting all of us.
I get that question a lot, and I don't think that should happen. And here's why. Well, when I look at who was on the plane with me, it was aid workers. It was people from CDC, Doctors Without Borders, Save the Children, who are going in to provide the relief. And they need to be able to get in there. We are safest if we knock this out of West Africa. And it's not like people are going there for tourism. They're going there to help. And there were some family members who were going there to help. But
I'm not objecting to their motives. I think their motives are heroic. I'm just saying, if you're there, why not stay there until the disease is contained? Why go to other countries where you can pass on the disease?
Well, I think that Americans who are going there, from the CDC, from Department of Defense, who are going to help, need to come back, and you can come back safely. You can come back and you can monitor your temperature so you're not spreading the disease. But if we don't allow the free flow of aid into those countries, we're never going to control this, and we are at greater risk.
All right, Dr. Besser, thank you so much for your words.